All right, and welcome everybody to this week's episode of Optimal You. In the house, got two awesome guests. I'm super excited. We've got Stu and his lovely wife, Kateka. Hey guys.
Hi.
How's it going? It's going well. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stu, we met through work probably 2-3 years ago.
It's probably been like 4 years now.
Maybe 4. Time flies. Good times. I was working in the gym at 1-800-Contacts, and we connected. You were going through a fitness journey yourself, had questions, and that's really how our relationship and friendship started. And from there, the following of each other on social media, sharing and exchanging of numbers, texts. Hey, what about these heart rate ranges? And what does this look like? What should I be doing? Giving you advice on, I remember one in particular, I think I told you that I would eat Jolly Ranchers during my workout to get a little bit of sugar and a little bit of a boost.
I think I was asking about sugars during the workout. I think I was asking about macros in general.
Yeah.
Having a conversation with that is funny.
And you've since moved on from the 1-800-Contacts and taken another job now, but we've still been connected. And as I started the show, thinking of people who I wanted to bring on to share their story, I've been loosely connected to your story through social media. And today we're going to be talking about infertility, your experiences and your struggles with that. Now, your awesome wife, Katie, joining us here, has her own vlog going that shares this story and experiences. And I've listened in. You've got a very successful platform, so I'm excited to have you here with us.
Thank
as well.
you. That's very nice of you to say.
So let's start right at the beginning. When did this romance, this relationship start? How did it start?
Oh, man.
Back when TVs were still in black and white.
It's been a long time.
No, so it started, gosh, on the spot with the years. So it'd probably been 2002. I went on my mission. Got called to Texas. It was Lubbock, Texas mission.
I served in Texas too.
Oh, you did?
Houston.
Oh.
West Texas is a lot different than Houston.
Yes.
But it's still Texas, and everybody loves it there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was on my mission there. I was serving in an area. One of the missionaries out there I became pretty good friends with. He was pretty funny. And somehow we ended up being partnered up together. Like our companions went on transfers or whatever with each other.
Wait, I feel like we should pause there. Because for me at this point in my life, I was at Utah State going to college, and one of my roommates, her boyfriend went on his mission to Lubbock, Texas.
Okay.
And so she was writing him letters like a dutiful girlfriend would for the time being. And, she's telling him about college life and sending pictures, and here are my roommate. Well, I knew the boyfriend. We all went to high school together. But anyway, so I was in several of the pictures that she was sending.
You were student body officers with him as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were friends.
Mutual friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, so I'm with him, and of course we're sharing pictures of, our families and everything back home, and he whips out this massive photo album of pictures of his girlfriend. So he's like, oh, look at all these pictures of my girlfriend. I was like, okay, whatever. But yeah, one of the pictures in there was a picture of his girlfriend with her roommates, and Kate was one of the roommates. So I saw this picture, and I always joke about it, but in the picture, Kate was the tallest one in the picture. But they're like standing in front of a window or something, so like, Kika had this like halo of light surrounding her head, and she was just so beautiful. I was just like, oh my gosh, as I was looking at this picture. So I was like, it's like, Hyatt, I've got to rate this girl. And he's like, oh, she's dating a friend. And then like literally that day when we got the mail, there was a tape from his girlfriend in there. And on this tape, Kika jumps on real quick. She's like, I broke up with my boyfriend. And I was just like, it's destiny.
Here we go.
So we wrote letters to mail back to him, and they sent Kika a letter with a picture of me, I think.
Yeah, his first letter, the very first line is, Kit Kat, I love you. And I saw that, and I'm like, this guy's psycho. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
But,
run.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, great.
What is that missionary doing?
But I'm an 18-year-old young kid, and I see this picture, and I thought he was hot. So I'm like, okay, he's okay looking, okay.
I I was a svelte 185. I was in shape. I was young.
So
The world hadn't got me down.
Yeah, not yet. But it was very slow at first. Like, we wrote back and forth, like, maybe once every other month for the first little while. It was very, just kind of slow. But then it just kind of picked up. And we would email each other sometimes. He started sending me, like, audio tapes, because this is, like, early 2003. And
before the techno boom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were sending tapes back and forth, and then Stu is a good missionary, but he's also kind of a bad missionary in breaking some rules. So he called me on Mother's Day, and we talked.
I wasn't against mission rules.
Okay. And anyway, so we talked for several hours.
Wow, the mission president said, I can't remember what he said.
Anyway, so when he got home off his mission, I was really nervous, and because everyone knew of Goodman at this time, and wanted us to start dating immediately. And I'm like, what if it's just like the idea of each other that we like? What if we don't actually really like each other? We've been pen pals, for heaven's sakes. And anyway, so I met him the first day he came home, and
oh wow,
yeah, and I was scared to death. But
I don't know. I don't know what my plan was. Like, I knew I wanted to meet Keika, but I don't know that I necessarily had this plan to meet her on the day that I got home. And I think my mom dialed your number and then handed me the phone.
Yeah.
I was just like, come over, I'm home.
You need that help when you're fresh home.
I mean,
and that
like,
encouragement.
fresh home.
I was awkward for sure.
Yeah. So I came over. I mean, he hadn't even been released yet. But he went and got released, and then I stole him from his family that night, and we drove around Salt Lake City and Park City and all over the place. And then he kissed me.
There was wasting no time.
Yeah.
Story's getting juicy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it.
And literally, like, that weekend, he's like, so are we dating? Are we serious? And I'm like, holy cow, you've been home like 4 seconds. Like, give it a minute. And he wanted to, like, get married really, really fast, but I was not. I mean, I was still so young, and so I said, we need to give this some time. So we dated for 2 years.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
were you still going through school?
Yeah.
Up in Logan. Were you down?
I ended up moving home after a few months when he got home, so that I could be closer to him.
Okay.
Well, I think I came home with that, like, thinking of, like...
I'm going to have you... Sorry, I'm a rookie here, so that top one just very slightly... Hello. There we go. I forgot to adjust that. The gain way better.
Okay, good.
All right.
I think, when I was coming home off my mission, I think I kind of had... So I had never really dated anybody super seriously. So in my head, I thought, oh, we get along great. Like, yeah, we've been writing this whole time. We've talked to her on the phone before. Of course, I know exactly who she is. This is going to be so easy. We're going to go home, get married, and it'll be great. But luckily, Keika had her head on her shoulders. We, like, didn't get married right away. So even though we, like, got to know each other really well from writing for, like, 1.5 years, like, we got to know each other again in, like, a different...
Yeah.
Better, more in-depth way, I guess.
Well, I was also like, I need to see that you can get a job and like buy your own car, because he's still way young too. So we had a lot of growing up to do, and I feel like we still got married pretty young. So I feel like we've been growing up together in a way.
I would anticipate that doesn't stop or doesn't end. There are always things to learn or experiences to go through.
Well, and you like change and evolve as you get older, and so that your partner has to figure out how then to evolve with you and take care of you and how your needs and everything change.
I remember for the longest time too, even after we were married, thinking like, when am I going to feel like a grown-up? And I don't feel like I really started feeling like a grown-up until like probably the last like 6 months to a year.
I wonder what that's going to feel like too, Stu.
It feels the exact same. Instead of, it feels the exact same. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I feel like a grown-up now, but I don't necessarily feel different. I just feel like old.
But we ended up getting married in 2006, and we just barely celebrated our 12th anniversary.
Awesome. So, congrats.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's such a sweet story. So,
thank you.
So you guys are you're newlyweds in your marriage.
Yeah.
When did thinking about kids, having kids, come in? Was that something that you guys wanted to do right away? Maybe wait for?
No, I mean, so when we were dating, I think we talked about it a little bit. I remember right after we were first married, because we kind of had a discussion, I think, and we both were like, well, I don't want to be an old dad. Well, that's what I said anyways. I think Keika kind of agreed with me. So, I mean, it wasn't super soon. I think it was about 2 years after we'd been married.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were living in the basement apartment at that time. We moved in there about 2 years after.
But like my family had children, or like my sister did. My brother was just about to have his first baby, and there wasn't really infertility in my family. Physically, everything seemed fine, and so I expected that we would have children the instant we came off of birth control.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely startling. There was no reason to think it wouldn't work right away. So yeah, it was definitely a huge shock.
And how did you find out about that?
So, so I got off of birth control 2 years in, and I mean,
Well, for a while we weren't necessarily trying; we just weren't preventing.
yeah.
And I think we just assumed that, you know.
When everyone makes it seem like it's that easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we were almost hoping for like an accident baby, maybe.
Yeah.
Just something fun to like surprise people with.
I mean, this is probably way TMI, but I remember like my first month of being off birth control. I remember like being so nervous and crying, like, "Oh my gosh, it's the first month and I'm already pregnant, and I don't know that I'm ready for this yet." You know, and I buy like 10 pregnancy tests, and they're all negative, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm not pregnant."
Yeah.
But so after about a year of just not trying, I went and just had my annual physical done with my doctor, and had mentioned that I had been off birth control for a year, and so they ran like some very basic blood work and said everything's fine, keep trying. So that was enough hope for me, and I'm like,
Yeah, I had a
we just need
semen
to
analysis
pay more
done
attention.
as well, and everything. The doctor said anyway, everything looks great.
Yeah.
So I think after that we started tracking cycles, right?
Yeah, I mean, without getting like way into it, they have women can like take their temperature each morning and pay attention to other physical symptoms that are going on. And so I was keeping like a daily log of everything that was going on,
Okay.
and trying to take advantage of like when I'm ovulating and all that stuff. And I mean, that went on for probably about 6 months, and so I had a 6-month history, and so still not pregnant. And I took that into my doctor, and they were like, I guess we can try putting you on just some oral medication just to like give things an extra bump, just to see if that helps. So I went on Clomid, which any woman who's been on it knows, like, it just makes you psychotic. All of these drugs make you nuts. But yeah, so I went on that, and I did that for about 3 months, and nothing came of it. And at that point, like, I was so frustrated and so depressed. I had been eating so much food to cope with my depression, I guess.
Okay.
And anyway, so it didn't work. And so I said I was going to take a break from the medication and just focus on losing weight. So I lost 30 pounds, and like we were about to move on to the next aggressive step, which is called an IUI, which is in uterine insemination, where they take the semen.
The babies. Yeah.
I'm nervous.
That word.
Can I be an adult? I should just say these anatomical things. And then they put it up there for you. And
with a turkey baster.
yeah, so I had exactly
It's like a
right
giant
with a turkey
iPad.
baster.
Yeah, since we're being adults and we're talking.
Yeah, and that's
professional,
right,
Yeah.
medically what they do.
Medically.
I mean, it's actually a small turkey baster.
I mean, it pretty much is. But anyway, so I was just about to go through that procedure, and then I fell down my stairs and broke my foot, and
Oh no.
my
It was good. It was right before. It was like the first day of spring break.
yeah, we had taken days off of work, and I broke my foot, and they said if you continue with this and you get pregnant and your foot is like a mess, there's no way we can do surgery on this. So I had to wait. Luckily, my foot healed fine, but we're further in. And I mean, when you're going through infertility, like every second that you have to wait is just torture. And so waiting like for my foot to heal was such a pain in the butt. But anyway, so we finally went through with our IUIs, and again, like, because there was no reason to think that they wouldn't work. I was so hopeful. I really thought they would work. And I remember making Stuart write this letter. It's so corny, but I made him write this letter too, literally titled "Maybe Baby." Like, because maybe it worked. Maybe, and so mine is like so sympathetic and loving and as if it's my child. And Stuart's is like, well, your mother is making me do this, and this is so dumb because we don't even know if we're pregnant.
I went into those IUIs, I think, with a really bad attitude because in my head I was thinking, by the time you're doing this, I'm like, we've had unprotected sex now for 3 years. Like, there's no way that doing this stupid pipette thing is going to, like, do anything.
It works for some people, though.
True. If it works for you, awesome. But I don't know. In my head, it was just like, I think I'd already told myself, I was like, no, this makes no sense to me. But
I think maybe you were kind of let down from all of the fails before.
That's true. I was like those images of the snowballs that get bigger as they roll down the hill. My depression and negative attitude towards all things like fertility and babies and life in general was just like slowly growing down the hill at this point.
Yeah.
Toward the pit of despair.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's my friend Tim.
Oh, hi, Tim.
I left my door unlocked and he just walked in.
He
might open that door. Well, I said we weren't going to cut and we edit, so yeah, we'll see if he helps himself out as he's helped himself in. He's knocking. Hey Tim, open the door.
You hiding in here?
We're recording.
Oh, some dog too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I tried to call you like 10 times.
It's on airplane mode.
Well, I was worried sick about you. I saw a car out there.
Yeah,
I didn't recognize it.
Just my friend Stu and
Sorry.
Kateka-The. We're recording here.
Alright, I'll get out of here.
Yeah,
Hello, everybody.
That's all.
Call me later.
I'll call you later.
Nice to meet you guys.
Great.
Just checking on you.
Yeah.
Oh
there's
my
a
gosh.
strange car parked in your apartment.
Yeah, that's true. It's my strange car.
Good friend. You gotta have some good friends.
That's right. That's sweet. He's checking up on you. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Oh man.
Anyways, I didn't think the IOIs would work. So I was like when she made me write that letter, I was just like, we're gonna look back on this in like 2 months and be like, this was so dumb.
I did erase them. But the thing too is like every time it didn't work, like my coping was anger, and so I tend to just
Anger and food.
I was gonna say, so this snowball is getting larger and larger, and both of you have made references to weight and weight gain that goes with this, and very common with depression, right?
Right.
And even myself, food is comfort. Comfort is food, and so you do eat. So along with these infertility struggles, you're experiencing these weight struggles as well, as a result of the infertility.
Yeah,
right.
I gained weight on my mission. Like, I am a total food addict. I completely know that. Like, so giving into the food all the time, it's not good. So I gained like 40 to 60 pounds, I think, on my mission, eating Tex-Mex.
Yes.
Everything's fried in the South, and it's awesome, and so grateful for it.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah. So I gained a bunch of weight when I got home. When I got home, I was probably like 230. 235. I think by the time we got married, I was probably about 240, 250. And then every year through this fertility thing, I think, so like this last year, like my first weigh-in for the diet, it was the heaviest I've ever been. So I weighed in at like 336 in January of this year. So it just keeps coming on. I keep eating and I keep getting fatter.
No, you're working on it. He's done a lot of progress.
He has
He's made a lot of progress.
Yes. It's interesting. A lot of these times, there's a lot of focus on the mom and the mother in these. But Stu, it's interesting you say that this had a huge impact. What were some of those feelings that you were feeling?
I mean, it's super hard. Obviously, like, I have my own feelings of disappointment, my own feelings of like, what the heck are we doing? Like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it's just like the Mormon upbringing of like, oh, you get married, you start a family, that's how life works, that's what you do. So I don't know if it was those expectations, or if it was trying and failing, or what. I had all my own disappointments, my own frustrations. I was mad about the situation, mad that I couldn't do anything. And then in addition to that, like having my wife here next to me who, obviously as a husband, I want to protect. I don't want her to feel sad. I don't want her to feel bad. I want, like, when we have problems, you know, the typical male thing, like, I want to fix whatever she's complaining about or whatever else it is.
Yeah.
So it was really hard as well in that aspect because it was something that I couldn't fix. And so you literally, like, you feel helpless. Like, I felt helpless, but it wasn't like the sad type of helpless. It was like the angry type of helpless. So for me, a lot of, I think, my depression, how I handled it was in anger. So I was very sad, but I really felt really mad more than anything. Like, I felt I was super short-tempered, irritable, angry.
Mad at the situation, was there like a specific focus for that anger, or just mad in general?
I mean, I was mad at the situation for sure, but I think most of my anger, honestly, is pointed towards God more than anything. And again, I don't know if it's because of the Mormon upbringing, but you at least in the Mormon church, you're taught that families are the whole point of life, essentially. Families are eternal. God blesses you with children, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat there thinking, like, okay, well, in my religion, we believe that God has commanded us to do this. Like, we know we want to have kids. We know that that's like the whole point behind, you know, whatever, the temple and everything else that we do in the religion. And I'm sitting here trying to fulfill this commandment, and I physically can't.
Yeah. What the heck?
You know, so it's really hard. You sit there and pray for miracles, and I'm sure, you know, people pray for stuff all the time that you don't get answers to, but I think that was just a really hard thing to go through, was
definitely
having a serious lack of understanding, at least in terms of what I understood the gospel to mean to me.
Stu went through a time too where it was typical depression where if he wasn't working, he was sitting on the couch watching TV, and that was it. Like, weekends, we didn't go outside. We spent all of our time indoors. Usually, the sweet thing, I guess, kind of, was like we were always like cuddled up with each other, but at the same time, we were almost enabling each other too, like to just lay around. And I remember even asking Stuart one time, like, do you have, like, as even though I'd known him for years and years at this point, I'm like, what are your hobbies? Should we sign you up for something? Like, what do you want to do besides watch TV? And he was like, I don't know. I just want to sit. And I remember thinking, like, is this what he's always going to be like forever? We actually, I didn't ever go on depression medication, but we did put Stu on it for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't like the way that it made him feel. So,
well, it didn't make me feel weird. Like, I was on it. And
nothing against people who are on it.
Yeah, I know some people need it. I mean, for me, it just, like, I was on it, but and I thought, oh wow, things are great now. Like, everything's great. And I remember having a conversation with Keika where she's like, nothing in our life has changed. And I was like, oh, like, I thought our relationship was at the best it had ever been.
Like,
right
I think
now.
he thought depression medication would fix everything, where it's like it may give you the stamina to move forward, but I didn't feel like life had changed. Like, he was just watching TV happily now.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly what it is. I think of those Febreze commercials, right, where they spray a Febreze, but they're still in the room that has all of the garbage that's around.
Right.
As you guys are describing that.
Yeah.
So that's really what it felt like. And so for me, I got off it pretty quick after that, because I'm like, this is, like, even though it's making me feel better, maybe, like, I'm just, if anything, I feel like I'm just kind of pulled the wool over my own eyes, so to speak, and I'm not actually grasping the situation our life is in.
Yeah. I think, and obviously I think I went through a form of depression too, but for me, just with my own personal feelings and beliefs with my own body, because this whole experience has really made me attuned to my physical self and, like, the feelings my body gives to me. And the grief process and the loss of everything, I didn't want to mute with medication. I felt like for me to heal and for me to move forward, I had to feel all of it, as horrible as the pain was. So I've always kind of had, like, a limit for myself, though. Like, if I really can't get out of bed, if I can't function, if I can't perform my daily duties, then I need to talk to a doctor. But if I'm still functioning, then I need to learn how to cope with life as it is. And I felt like, luckily, I didn't have, like, the easiest childhood, but I've watched my mom go through things and other people who I am inspired by. And so I knew as hard as it could be, that I could overcome. Like, it's going to take time and it's going to take patience, but I can do this. And so I kind of think that's how we've both kind of felt with medication. Like, I fully support people being on it when they really need it, but I didn't feel like it was something I wanted to be on.
Yeah, at times it can correct a very severe chemical imbalance where it's going to be good, but in other situations, like you said, it's situational. Your brain doesn't have that imbalance that other people may have, but it's just making the situation better while not at the same time. That's so interesting. So you guys tried the IUI the first time. It did not work. Now what? Where are you guys at?
So we
tried another one.
Yeah, we did a couple and neither of them worked. And then at this point, I think we're in like 2012, and someone recommended a doctor to me. I'm not going to say who he is just because I hate him so much. But they recommended to me because his prices were far less expensive than anyone else in Utah. And so we went and had a consult with him, and immediately on the first appointment, he's like, "Oh, I know exactly what the problem is. It's this and this and this. Both of your testosterone levels are just the worst. We're going to put both of us on hormones to bring those levels up." And so he actually put it's like the size of a homeopathic pill, but a pellet, a testosterone pellet, and he sliced my hip open and shoved this testosterone pellet inside my hip and butterfly bandaged it. And
on your first visit?
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay, I was like,
but that was the diagnosis.
Doctor.
He's like, we cut you open.
How you open? Let's get this inserted.
No, sorry. That was a little out. A couple weeks later.
So he ran through that, and then that was part of his. Yeah,
but he did like a physical on the first examination and all sorts of stuff, and we fully trusted him. He was the first person who said, "I have answers for you." So we were so vulnerable and desperate, and so we were willing to do anything he told us to do.
Yeah.
So I did this hormone therapy, and the testosterone was meant to be in my system for 6 months, and after 6 months, that was going to be the prime time to do, excuse me, what they call a min-stim IVF, where they do very minimal medication. They only want to just grow a few eggs, and then they retrieve them, fertilize them, let them grow for a few days in a petri dish, and then put them back inside the mother. So anyway, so I did the protocol exactly like he said to. And 6 months in, we did the minimal stimulation IVF, and we got, I think, like 4 or 5 eggs, and they fertilized them with Stu's sperm. And day 3 into the growth of our little embryos, they said, the quality's pretty bad. We're going to hurry and just transfer them inside you now. And so I remember we went in, and again, so hopeful because we'd done everything. We paid so much money. I actually took a little money out of like my 401k to pay for it. And so to go in, and they said, "These look pretty bad and we have no hope for you." I just remember being so devastated.
Plus having waited that time frame, right? The 6 months with the testosterone, and now we're to this point. So there's all of that build up, the hope, as you mentioned, the vulnerability that you had, and to be told that at that point, wow, that must be devastating.
It was really hard. So
I think, and to that point, I think that's a lot of the frustration and hardness of infertility that people don't really tell you about is the waiting. Everything is waiting, and waiting for something is obviously hard, even when it's like something exciting. But when you're nervous about an outcome, it's like even more torture. And then to just consistently get like the negative result from everything we did, I think the waiting more than anything like ages and it just wears on you. Yeah.
So it didn't work. And I remember being really surprised by how things were handled. And Stu ended up one night researching the doctor, which is something we should have done from the beginning. And he found some pretty terrible articles online. He had served prison time for sexual misconduct with his patients. And he wasn't actually like a fertility specialist, and just all sorts of garbage. And so I called the clinic the next morning, and I wasn't even necessarily upset about that, but I was upset at how they handled our situation, because medically there was just a whole bunch of weird things that happened. And they said, we'll give you like a discounted IVF if you want to come in again. And I was like, I just want to run far away from you.
Yeah.
So I think at that point, I had lost all that weight after breaking my foot, or before, anyway. And with the failure and the hormones, like, it makes it really challenging to stay, like, to maintain your weight. I was gaining, I was doing all these things. And then also there was just this level of pressure. Like you said, there's a lot of pressure on the female where, like, there are all these articles, and I just threw myself into research, and it's like, you need to do this if you're trying to get pregnant, eat these foods, don't be stressed, don't be this, don't be that. And so I was trying so hard to make my body like the perfect environment to be pregnant. But at the same time, adding that level of stress just made it almost impossible to keep that up. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I would try so hard and then like mess up a little bit. And it's kind of a lot of people who are trying to lose weight experience this, where it's like you mess up and you tell yourself you're a failure. It's you're done for. Why do you even try? Self-sabotage, you know? And so I would throw myself off the wagon and just binge like crazy. And so it was these cycles of like really well eating and then like 2 weeks of binge eating back and forth and back and forth. And I really made my body pretty miserable doing all that.
Sometimes I wish we would have kept track of how many pounds of chocolate-covered cinnamon gummy bears we ate during this, like, the last 10 years.
Yeah, we did eat a lot.
So those were great.
Yeah, they're yummy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at this point, we knew that our case had been handled pretty poorly with that doctor, so we consulted with several doctors this time, which is what we should have done at the beginning. But we...
Did you guys do anything as far as, like,
No,
like malpractice or anything against the doctor, or did you just walk away from that situation?
we just walked away. My dad practiced malpractice. He was a malpractice attorney, and he was in California, and he said malpractice can be pretty difficult to...
Yeah, lengthy and...
Yeah.
But the thing was, like, we actually did consult with a fertility specialist up at the U, and I think that's part of the reason why this guy seems so legit, because we went up there, met with the doctor, she looked at our records, she recommended we do 6 more IUIs.
This was before the IVF.
Yeah, after like the 2.5 years of like trying, not trying, and then like the IUIs in addition to. So he was actually the second doctor we did consult with, but he's like, oh no, your hormone levels are here and blah, 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 blah. So that's part of the reason why we did kind of research doctors, but we didn't look into them past just the initial consults. We're like, oh, finally somebody is like taking us seriously.
Yeah.
You guys are in that vulnerable state, and you're being told and given the hope of what you want to hear, and he's telling you he can create this outcome for you.
Right, exactly. And he's like, you're young. I was only like 27, 28 at the time. So anyway, so we did consult with a couple more doctors after that experience, and both of them looked over because I got the paperwork from that doctor, and they said, oh my gosh, your testosterone levels were out the roof. Like, you could have possibly been growing tumors. They were so high. And I'm like, what the heck? So we were pretty frustrated, but we settled on a doctor that we really liked. We've been with him for the last like 4 years, but we had to save again for another IVF, and each...
What were some of those costs? Like, up to that point where you started working with this new doctor, so 4 years ago, how much had you guys invested into this process?
It wasn't 4 years. It wasn't like 5 or 6 for the first one with Dr. Folk.
I think we did it in, it was probably, I think it was 2014. So it's been about 4 years. But up to that point, I mean, so that pervert doctor, that's what I like to call him, that cycle cost about, I think, $6,000 or $7,000. And the IUIs and stuff leading up to that were like a couple $100 each. So, but this new clinic, I mean, they're like the best in Utah. And we had a little bit of help from some family and friends. But in total, I think with medication, everything included, I think it was probably around $11,000 or $12,000. So, I can't remember if that's when I started all that fundraising.
On the first one?
Yeah, if it was the second one.
No, we had some family help us out with the first one quite a bit. I think they paid for a majority of the actual IVF, but we still paid for like $4,000 to $5,000 in meds.
Yeah. Anyway.
Medications can be really expensive.
Yeah, it is crazy expensive. But we went through that cycle, and they didn't do minimal stimulation. They did full blown stimulation with the injections in the stomach, and you're leading up. I mean, I think I was doing injections for probably about a month. And so then they did the egg retrieval, and we got over like 36 eggs. And like when you think about it, like a girl each month is retrieving 1 egg, maybe 1 to 2. So 36 at once. Like that's a big deal. And your abdomen is crazy swollen. And anyway, so they had good hopes for us because I responded so well to medication. But once again, they fertilized them. And by day 3 of them growing in a petri dish, they said, these just don't look good. And I was so crushed, and I'm like, well, I guess that's it. It's over. But we still ended up transferring the only 2 that survived to day 5 in their petri dish, and they said they're pretty poor quality, so let's just cross our fingers. And I was convinced it didn't work, and so I remember I took 2 weeks off of work while you wait to see if you're pregnant. You know, you have to wait 10 days. And I was painting the house, and I was doing all sorts of things I probably shouldn't have been doing. I should have been resting, but I just was convinced. And so when I went in for my blood draw, they said, you're pregnant. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have been painting. I'm so nervous. But I was so excited. And I'm like, I'm pregnant. Oh my gosh, I'm having a baby. Because I didn't realize at that point, like, just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you're going to take a baby home. And so I still assumed, like, we finally did it. I'm so happy. And,
And with that, did one of the eggs take, or did both of them?
You know, I don't know.
Okay.
But,
I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have an ultrasound 2 weeks after that blood draw. And so we went in for that blood draw. Well, I had started bleeding before then, and so we were pretty certain I was miscarrying. But at that ultrasound, they said, you're definitely miscarrying. We can see your uterus contracting against the baby trying to get it out. And I'm like, this is a nightmare. But, so that was really hard.
That was coming, though.
Well, because of the bleeding, we had expected it, but we hoped it wasn't. But
that was after, but before that, so we got the initial blood results saying that we were pregnant, and then we went through like 2 weeks of getting a blood draw every 2 to 3 days just to check the hormone levels to see if they were increasing properly.
Yeah.
And they did one day, and then the next blood draw they wouldn't, and the next one they went up further. So it was like the constant up and down roller coaster. It was like
it's working. It's not
emotional havoc on us.
Mm-hmm.
Were there adjustments that they did with those, or was it we just have to wait and see how this goes?
It's all we can see.
Yeah.
So then at that point, my doctor said, because I was ready to give up, I'm like, this is not going to work. And he said, no, I think you have endometriosis. And endometriosis, I feel like I'm just teaching everyone about female anatomy. But
lucky for you, I studied exercise science.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
okay. So
I'm familiar with this,
there you
although
go.
I'm single, not married. I know what we're talking about here.
Yep. So basically, it's just scar tissue from a monthly cycle that settles in the abdomen and just creates havoc for reproductive ability. So he said, I think you have this. And so he just wanted to give me medication for it. But the only way you can diagnose it is with surgery. And I said, I don't want to just go on medication just because you think I might have it. Like, if we're going to test me for it, I want to know for sure. So do the surgery. And so I went in through surgery, and they said, holy cow, it's so bad. Like, it's everywhere. And hindsight, I'm like, that would have been really good to have known this like years before. But again, he's like, we took all of it out. We're going to put you on the medication now. I think you have a great chance of it working.
Mm-hmm.
So my hopes are up again. We've got answers, and we know for real this time. Like, we've seen the images. We know what's wrong.
We've gone through a procedure here to clear up something that may have been a cause. And
Well,
so,
he did.
Right.
When he did the surgery, though, he did say that there was potential that it might be in the ovary, impacting the egg as well.
Yeah.
Which you can't surgically remove.
Yeah, you can't open up an ovary. But anyway, so at this point, I'm like, now that we have these answers, I can't just let this lie. Like, I have to know what's going to happen now that we have this information.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to save again about the same amount, $11,000-ish. And so this time, the first time we were really quiet. We didn't tell anyone about it because we wanted to have that fun reveal that everyone gets to have when they're pregnant. And the second time, I needed help. And so I said, I'm going to learn how to crochet, and I made hats and stuff for people, and they'd pay me for them. And if anyone wanted to give something to DI, I said, give it to me instead. I'll sell it online. And so our entire front room was covered. Like we looked like hoarders. We had to create like pathways through to get to the kitchen and stuff. But we ended up making probably about $5,000 in all the donations and things that people had given to us.
Yeah.
And then
Some good friends.
Yeah, friends that gave us some money as well. Like,
yeah, we had some great friends who helped us.
Help for sure. Like,
yeah.
There's no way we could have done it as soon as we did without all the help we received.
Right. So we did receive a lot of help. So then we went through another IVF.
And I think it was actually more expensive this time because on this time he said, I think what we need to do is give you some growth hormone shots for a few days to help beef up the eggs. And each shot was $500 for that.
$700.
But we did like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, they were way
so
expensive.
that alone just, Anyway, drugs are crazy expensive.
It's outrageous.
It's also interesting here you talk about those, so having like a working out bodybuilding background. It's like, this is what they do for bodybuilders who want to get big.
Right.
I can't imagine that they actually pay the U.S. price for those growth hormones.
Yeah.
They go to Mexico.
Yeah, most of them do.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So we went through another IVF and again responded really, really well to the medication. And by day 5, where normally we only have like 1 or 2 crappy looking embryos, we had 7 still growing. We had 2 that looked pretty good. We've never had like a perfect looking one, but 2 that looked really good, and then the other 5 they were going to watch to see if they, I don't know, they just wanted to watch them an extra day. So we transferred the 2 good looking ones, and this time I'm like, we've got everything figured out. We've been on this journey for so many years, and now we get to like tell our story of overcoming, and we've done it, and I'm so excited. And P.S. of those 5, we had 1 that looked great, good enough to freeze. So again, we went in 10 days later, had a blood draw, and they said, you're pregnant.
Wow.
But your numbers look really bad. And so they looked worse than they did the time before, which was really shocking because
it was literally,
I was like, so they say you're pregnant at the HCG level has to be at 5, and anything less than that you're not. I was at 5.1.
Oh.
And I'm like, this is a joke. Let me stop the medication. This is not going anywhere. No, we have to wait and see. So we waited like an extra week and a half, again, of the constant like blood draws every few days to see what was happening. And then finally they tanked and said, okay, now you're officially miscarrying. So at that point, Stu and I, we had a townhouse in South Jordan. And we were...
Well, we had 1 left, so we did the...
Oh, well, not yet, though. So we did that, yeah. So we lived in South Jordan, and we were trying to live the life that all of our friends are living with children, you know? And we kind of got to a point where we're like, why are we doing this? Like, we really don't have anything tying us down. Why don't we do something different, something that we've been interested in? We've been interested in real estate for a while. So we said, let's rent our townhouse and save up for a duplex. And so we moved in with Stuart's parents, and while we were living with Stu's parents, this is 2016 now, we transferred that 1 final frozen embryo, and it didn't take it all. I didn't get pregnant. And so...
And that was the good one?
One of the good ones. Mm-hmm. And so I still didn't feel satisfied because we didn't quite have any answers like why I was miscarrying. Now I had entered a boat of why I'm recurrent miscarrying. And so there's this thing called natural killer cells, and everyone has them. They're an immune function of sorts, but we wanted to see if mine were elevated, and they were attacking my embryos. And so I had a blood test done, and it showed that they were, or that my levels were quite high. And so my doctor again said, if we treat this, I think we can stop you from miscarrying. So right after we got that information, this great online couple, Ellie and Jared, they have a massive following on YouTube. They were doing a grant giveaway to a couple who needed IVF, and they were going to give to 1 couple. And we ended up being one of 7 finalists. And so were really open about it then, and like telling everyone the story on Facebook, on Instagram. We were sharing everything, and we were saying, you know, go vote for us, give us a thumbs up, and help us get this IVF. And
Yeah.
we were, I mean, it's a nationwide contest, and we were second in line to win. But the people in front of us were like so far ahead of us that we knew pretty early on that we weren't going to win it. But at the same time, it was still it was so amazing to see this outpouring of love from our friends and family who maybe didn't know all the details, and especially the online community, and people from Ellie and Jared's following who were cheering us on and supporting us and showing us so much love. And so Ellie and Jared called us today to tell us, you know, the results, and we knew the couple who was going to, or we didn't know them, but we knew we weren't going to win. We knew the couple had way more votes than we did. But then they said, like, huge surprise, we've had a whole bunch of people step up and they're going to give everyone a grant.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we were like, oh my gosh, we get one more chance at this, and now we really have all the answers this time.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't believe it. We were so overcome with like appreciation and gratitude and love, and anyway, but we were still living at Stuart's parents' house. So I'm like, this is such a stressful procedure. I need to be in my own place to do this. So and we had to cover the cost of the medication, which was about $7,000. So we had to save another $7,000 and also try to get out of the house and save for a duplex to leave. And so we started working on that. This is so much information.
Way too much. Just kidding.
Sorry, you cut as much as you want.
TMI.
This is the full story.
Yeah.
I'm like sweating as I tell it. But
it's a little hot in here, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. So I started a medication, and when it started to when it ended, I had a limited amount of time to do the IVF. And so by the time it was like my body had to do the IVF, we were not done with our duplex.
Yeah. So just quick story. So we moved in with my parents. We were renting our townhouse out. This was like right at this time also the housing market just decided to start its crazy climb that it's currently on.
Yeah.
So we finally got under contract for this duplex. We had to kick some tenants out. They were really pissed about it, obviously. They'd lived there like 9 years.
Oh, yeah.
But we kicked them out because the site they were in needed a lot of work and renovation. We thought, okay, well, we can put some money into that and eventually rent it for more while we lived there. We thought we could live in there while we did it, and the hope was we could also do the IVF.
Oh, that just fell. That's an extra one, so you're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so the timing of everything was just horrible.
It was terrible.
Right, so we were living in my parents' basement, but right around this whole time as well, my dad decided to leave the hose on outside and ended up flooding our bedroom.
Oh, no.
It like came in the window well and just flooded everything. So we like ripped up the carpet and everything, and basically had to move upstairs into like this small bedroom on this one side of their house. And it's like this older side. They had remodeled a bunch, but it's a tiny bedroom. And Kate and I have been sleeping on a king bed like almost our entire marriage. And so the bed that was in there was a full-size bed and then a twin-size bed. But the room was tiny, so this twin bed was literally like sticking halfway in the closet. I don't know.
It's like Harry Potter.
I think that this room was basically set up for my sister from Oregon comes to visit.
Exactly.
But that's basically what I was. So we tried the first couple nights to sleep in that full-size bed together, but we couldn't. So eventually one of us ended up sleeping in the closet bed, is what we call it, the closet bed.
Yeah.
But
so
it was just.
I'm just about to start my IVF. We're working on a duplex. We're sleeping in this like bless Stuart's parents' heart for dealing with us through all of this, but it was a nightmare, and not exactly where I would hope that I would have my Zen IVF. But I had to go through with it. And I remember at a point having a moment of like kind of mental clarity where I'm like, I can't control every circumstance. I wish I could, but I just can't. And so I just have to accept things as they are and just know like things will happen as they're supposed to and chill the freak out. So we went through another IVF, and this was in November of last year. And I retrieved a good amount of eggs again, and again their quality was just not good. again, which was just really frustrating because of all of the surgery and the medication I did to try to improve everything.
Mm-hmm.
So surprisingly, though, when I got the call to tell me about the development, the embryologist had said, like, they all look really bad, and I don't even know if we're going to be able to do a transfer and put any back inside you. And I was just, especially because we've been so open online,
Yeah.
and everyone is rooting for us, and I'm like, how do I tell this to Stuart, and how do I tell this to our lovely family and friends in this online community who's been there for us. And I remember calling Stuart immediately after that phone call, and I was just hysterical, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I wish I could change this. I don't know what to do, and I've ruined everything. And he was so sweet and just said, there's nothing you could have done. Like, you've done everything you could possibly do. Like, I'm so proud of you and I love you. And it was like one of those horrible moments that's like so sweet. I've kind of come to a point where I've learned that some of the most beautiful moments come from painful experiences. So it was a moment that I'll never forget, even though the circumstance is one that I don't love, but it's just kind of bittersweet. But then that same day, the embryologist called me a few days later and said, one's hanging on, and it came through. I don't know what happened, but it looks good. It looks good enough to transfer. You've got one little baby that's trying really hard.
Wow.
And I mean, my head is like pounding. I'm so emotional. I feel like I'm just going to die. But it was so sweet. And he said it's a little fighter, so we called it our fighter baby. And then he watched a couple others for a couple more days, even though that's past the time frame that they usually like to keep them out in a petri dish. But he said one more made it through. Its quality's not great, but we're going to give it a chance. So he said a lot of times we'll save these babies, these embryos, and we'll transfer it as well, but it's kind of your cheerleader embryo. So one that's cheering the good one on. And so we called that our cheerleader embryo. So we had our fighter and our cheerleader. Anyway, but I said, there's no way on earth I'm going to transfer these in the condition that we're in. Like, we have to finish this house that we're working on. And then when I've relaxed a little bit, we'll put them back in. So we moved a couple days before Christmas. We weren't even able to get each other Christmas presents because of the cost of everything we've been putting into everything.
This home renovation was like...
It was so hard. That's another story.
It was like that Money Pit movie.
Yeah, everything just was worse than we thought it would be. But so in April this year, we finally transferred them, and everything looked great. My body was right where it should be. The embryos, they freeze them, so they had to thaw them, and they said the thaw went perfectly.
It's interesting too, because a lot of times it seems like the embryos, they freeze them, and then when they thaw them, they somehow look better than they did before they were frozen. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we took 10 days off of work, and the day of our transfer, because we didn't have a Christmas, we had a Christmas for each other finally. So I think our transfer is April 6th, which I think isn't that Jesus' birthday or something? But we had Christmas on that day, and we finally gave each other some presents. We just wanted it to be the happiest day that we could. And so we called it Christmas. And every day because it's such a stressful 10 days, the wait, but we wanted it to be as happy as we could make it. So we did something each day that like brought us joy. So we saw a play one day, we went to a Harmon's cooking class and like made a meal, and sometimes it was just a TV show we wanted to watch that we've been waiting for. So we made it like the best we could. And I broke my own rule of taking an early pregnancy test, but I did. And really early on, like a few days after the transfer, I started getting positive pregnancy tests. And that's
the untold behind the scenes look at all of the IVFs we've done. Because like you have the blood tests, which usually show pregnancy at about the same time like an early pregnancy detection test can, but I'm sure most women that go through IVF do the same thing. But like we probably have purchased over 100 pregnancy tests in our last 10 years of infertility.
Yeah, we've bought a lot. But anyway, it was the soonest that I had ever gotten a pregnancy test, which usually means the numbers are starting soon, developing quickly. So again, hopes were up. But at the same time, because of the loss, I was also terrified. I'm like, is this just going to lead to another miscarriage? I'm so scared, but I really want to be hopeful. So I continued taking tests like a crazy person every day, sometimes twice a day. And so by day 10, when we were getting the blood draw, I was really, they say over 50 is good, but really over 100 is where it's really, really good. And I was hoping, just please be over 50. I'd never been over 50 before at this point. And they called and said, you're pregnant, but your number's low. And I was just like, no, not again. And they said, you're at a 38. And so I'm like, okay, that's still higher than I've ever been. Okay. Oh, and also because of the natural killer cells, I was on this immune suppressant treatment. Yeah, intralipids, where they hook you up to an IV and just try to suppress your immune system. So I was doing that to try to suppress my body from kicking out a pregnancy. So with that, I'm like, okay, let's just see. And same thing, they were testing me every few days to see if my numbers were rising properly. And they did. The whole time they rose really, really well. And so we got to like a day before our 6-week ultrasound. I just had a little light spotting, but that can be normal in pregnancy. So I was trying not to get too nervous about it. But we went in for our 6-week ultrasound. And in the waiting room, I remember feeling really, really sick. And I thought, I'm going to hope that this is like morning sickness and I'm just getting it. But I felt really off. And before they took us back to do our 6-week ultrasound to see if, everything's growing properly, they did the typical, do you want to empty your bladder first? And I said, why not? So I went into the bathroom and there was a lot of blood. And I could not believe that.
While you're there, so this hadn't happened before.
No.
While you're there.
At the doctor's office, like seconds before I'm having my ultrasound. And I was.
And usually at this stage with the ultrasounds that you have to IVF, you should see a heartbeat.
Yeah, and so I was just like, no, please, no. And I cleaned up and went into the room. The nurse wasn't in there yet. And I'm like, Stuart, I'm bleeding. And I was hysterical. Anyway, so she came in and I'm a mess. And she said, well, let's see what's going on. Sometimes bleeds happen. And with the experience of everything we've been through, like I feel like I, at this point, can kind of identify what they're looking for in the ultrasound. And I could see two circles. And we had transferred 2 embryos. And so I thought, oh my gosh, it's twins. Oh, please tell me there's something in there that they should be seeing. And she was kind of hemming and hawing. And she said, let me go get the doctor. And so we just knew, like, this probably isn't good. And not my doctor, but another doctor came in to talk to us. And she just touched my arm and said, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you've been at this for so long and we haven't been able to give you answers. I'm so sorry. And I still wasn't, because they didn't tell us, like, it's done. So I'm like, are they alive? And she's like, oh, no, they're not. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. Like, now we're at this point, like 9.5 years into our infertility journey. We've both been through so much. And have prayed for miracles, and we've seen other people continue on with miracles, and we thought like this was finally going to be it, like that grant was meant to be, and this was the thing that was, because we were so open, we get to share and maybe help other people who are going through the same thing. And so they said, or the doctor said, we if we do a D&C where we sedate you and suck the tissue out of your uterus, we can genetically test the embryo and see if there's a chromosomal abnormality, which people can do that before they transfer the babies, but we had chosen not to just because they were already kind of weak. Mm-hmm. So they said, do you want to go through surgery this very second? And I knew that answers, like as horrible as this is, answers come with peace of mind, and so I knew like we had to make a quick decision, but I knew I just needed that peace of mind. So I said, okay, sedate me. And they did. And it wasn't until like weeks later I thought about Stuart, and I thought how horrible that must have been for him to be like just watching me like fall apart and watch the nurses be like, I'm sorry. And then they have to kick him out. And he has to sit there and like send text to everybody like it's falling apart. And then take care of me after all the medications, or after the surgery. But anyway, it was horrible. It was definitely probably one of the worst definitely probably one of the worst days of my life, just because we went in hoping to see a heartbeat, and I mean I was pregnant and I left like empty. Yeah. So it was awful.
Sounds like a very bad doctor's visit.
Yeah,
it wasn't good.
Do you have any insight?
No, I mean that pretty much covers what we went through. It was rough, for sure. And this IVF too, like we literally did just about every test you could do leading into the IVF too. Like, they do something where they like scrape part of the uterine lining to see how the cells are developing, to see when exactly is the perfect like to the minute time to put the embryos in. Mm-hmm. So we did that. We did just about everything. We called it the all hands on deck trip or something.
Yeah, that was right. The all hands on deck cycle.
Yeah. So we literally were just trying to pull out all the stops, and I mean it worked for the most part. And I like at this point, I think in our IVF story, I had felt like I had let go of a lot of my anger leading into this. Like I think at a certain point, I was just like, it is so exhausting being angry. You know, it's like mentally, emotionally, and physically draining. So I feel like I kind of came to some level of acceptance. So for me going through this cycle, I felt like I probably more than I ever have tried to maintain a positive outlook on everything. Like even when things are going bad, it's like this is still the best we've ever done. Like it could still be okay. Like this is gonna be great, which is a lot out of my character because I think I'm actually kind of a complainer. And Kate would probably agree that I like to complain. But no, it was rough. That doctor's office for sure. Because Kate is super emotional. I'm feeling sad and emotional, and then it's like into surgery, and then it's like, all right, go sit in the waiting room.
Yeah.
So I just sat there, and I think we hadn't really told anybody that we were doing it because we wanted to surprise people if it worked this time again. So we've done both, where we everybody knows, and then we've done it where not everybody knows. So people knew we were doing IVF, they just didn't know when.
Yeah, we didn't give dates.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I had to go sit in the waiting room and just start sending out texts to everybody that said, hey, we did our IVF and we were pregnant. It was the best numbers we ever had, but we came to the doctor's office today and we miscarried. So
yeah. That night, I remember I could not, I would not let myself sleep because I knew I would have to wake up and face reality, and I just couldn't, I don't even know if that makes sense.
You almost didn't want to exit it just to step back in, is that
right? If I'm gonna be miserable, I just want to stay there. I don't want to have to have peace and then come back and have the back and forth. So I didn't sleep that first night. I stayed awake the entire night. And I remember Stu had fallen asleep and he was in our bedroom, and I was so upset, and I went into our bathroom so that I could turn the fan on, and I laid in the tub. I mean, clothed, just laid in my tub, not with no water. And I remember my heart hurt, and I had never felt that physical heart pain before, but I thought my heart was about to explode out of my body, and I just remember clutching at my chest do I let it explode, or do I try to contain it? And obviously it's not gonna literally, but it felt like it was going to burst out of me. And I had pregnancy symptoms, and they were all gone, and I could feel that. Even though I didn't have a baby bump at 6 weeks, I did have some pressure down there, and it was completely just flab at that point. And just letting go of that was so awful. And I probably cried. I finally slept after about 40 hours. I slept for 12 hours, but I cried for 3 solid days. And we've decided we need to get out of town. Let's go to St. George. And so we went to St. George for a few days, and that really helped brighten my spirits and give me something to look forward to get out of the house. And we had a nice time in St. George, and that was probably the start of the recovery. So that was all at the start of May. It's been 3.5 months now. And I feel like we've made a lot of progress, but I certainly don't think we're healed yet. We're much better than we were, but we still have a lot to do. I've been seeing a therapist, and we're just trying to gingerly look forward to the future. I mean, this has taught me so many life lessons, and I know that nothing's guaranteed, and things can change on a dime, or whatever the term is. and to just be grateful for what you have in that moment. And part of me regrets that I spent any of that pregnancy being anxious, because whether I was going to keep that baby long term or for 2 weeks, I wish I would have just felt only love and no anxiety, but at the same time, that's kind of impossible. But anyway, but I do feel like we're doing a lot better since then.
As part of going through that recovery, that healing process you mentioned, trying to envision that bright future as well, have you guys discussed what that looks like? Where are you guys at right now, and what does that look like for you guys? Is in vitro something that you're up and willing to try again?
No. Well, not with my eggs anyway. Like, I'm done. That's, I feel like, the epitome, or what do they call the definition of crazy, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So we've done it 3 times, 4 if you include pervert doctor, which I don't. But the outcome's been the same every time, and so I just don't think it will change. So we have made the decision to not talk about it, or not decide baby-wise what we're doing until next year. We want to make sure we give like ample time to heal from this grief. We do talk about the next option, and it's kind of just like a process of elimination. Like, where are we comfortable, where are we not? And we're just kind of weeding things down. So we don't quite know yet. I love foster care, and I do hope we do that one day. I'm scared of it though.
So my foster parents, my foster mom, just real quick, I don't want to
Yeah.
talk much about it, but she did it for 40 years.
Wow.
And there are a lot of not great stories, and there are a few great stories with that, but it is definitely a risk and a challenge,
right.
and it takes someone with an enormous heart to do it.
Yeah.
But the impact that it has on those children is priceless.
Right.
You won't know. With some of them, they haven't even contacted me. I mean, you won't know the impact that you have, but you definitely will make an impact there. My short little spiel about that.
How old were you when you were with your
I want to
foster
say
mom?
I first started to live with her when I was 5 or 6.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's neat. That's amazing.
So all the way through 18.
Mm-hmm. Yep, all the way till now. That's my mom. My mom's and my dad. Yeah.
I love that. See, and that's the thing, is I would do it immediately if I could keep the baby, but the idea of like bonding with the child and then having it taken away, like, I don't know that I'm in a place right now where I can handle it. In the future, I think maybe I could.
Yeah, I feel like in general our hearts need more healing before we approach it. I mean, at the end of the day, we know what options there are in terms of how we acquire a child.
Yeah. Catalog for that?
Yeah. But it's kind of hard. I think Keka probably has been wanting to talk more about what to do next more than I have. So for whatever reason, I don't know. I think we kind of go back and forth with, like, I guess we just process things different in general. Like, for me, it's been hard because whatever we do next, like, there's still options potentially where I'm able to still have a biological child. Not that that's the most important thing, obviously, but like having. Oh man, I'm an ugly crier and I talk weird when I cry. I go
You're so handsome.
Kermit voice. It's been like I don't know. Sorry. It's hard for me to know that we are leaving Keka's biological child behind, even though it's not something that's a possibility. So, like, I think the biggest holdup on deciding what the next step is or what to do has mostly been because even though I know I have to let go, I don't feel like I'm ready to. Sorry. Anyway,
yeah.
So it's definitely been hard, but I mean we do know what next steps are available to us, whether it's foster, whether it's adoption, whether it's egg donation or embryo donation. That's basically the four paths we can take. And it's kind of funny because Keka and I think even before we knew we were going to go through infertility, we always had planned on adopting
really
a kid or two.
Yeah.
I think most of the reason we've been trying so hard with the infertility treatments is because, especially once LDS Family Services stopped doing the adoptions, the price for adoption was just so expensive that like at this stage in our life right now anyways, it was just like, well, this is the cheapest route to trying to have a kid. But
yeah, I remember we were going after the first min-stim IVF failed. I thought, let's move on to adoption. And that week, LDS Family Services announced that they were quitting, and I just crumbled into the couch and cried. I'm like, oh, how will we ever afford adoption? But I think even though I've known for years now that, especially with my quality of eggs, that letting go of my biology was a possibility. And I still had hope for this last IVF, but I've kind of been letting that go for some time. So I do think maybe that's been a little easier on me than Stu, because I started long ago letting go of that. But it has definitely given me a new perspective of like I love our nieces and nephews so much, but you know, you can see their parents in them, and you see, well, that comes from your mom or that comes from your dad. And like our goal is parenthood, and we want to be parents more than we want like a biological tie, but knowing like that's like may not be something like, oh, you get that from your dad or from Stuart or from me, like that is something that you have to let go of, you know. And so we want to give that, it's I don't want to take on a baby when that's something I'm still thinking of. Like when I take on that baby, I want to know I love you completely for who you are, no matter where you come from. And so it's so important for us to make sure that is let to rest before we move on.
It was kind of hard. Like in a lot of ways, it's almost like we're mourning the loss of somebody that never existed, right? But it's like, it's weird. It's weird how minds and emotions play. Because like, even though that baby technically has never been here, it's not like we've lost an actual child. It still feels like we've lost something. And I don't think it's near the emotions, obviously. But
right. It's like letting go of a dream. Yeah.
And it's even been described that way as far as like coming over like traumatic experiences or any difficulties that we faced in life. We almost have to go through that mourning, that death with that experience to be able to overcome it and to start fresh and new. And wow, thank you guys for sharing all of that. It's amazing. And
it's a lot
of I can't imagine going through that roller coaster experience of emotions, of highs and lows. At one point thinking that you have resolved all of the issues, all of the things that are preventing you from having this child, only to then going through another waiting period, all the time that's associated with all the investment, the commitment, the shots, the medication, the doctor's visits, watching what you eat, creating that environment for your body to be able to take to end up where you guys are right now. That's a lot, and you both are amazing and strong, and there is a healing process, and I know that you guys will go through that, and the next step in what you guys are going to go through will be very clear and very apparent to you in of course, your own due time. It'll make itself present. As for others going through some of the same struggles or issues, some starting this journey, some who are in the middle of it, some who are at the exact same point, what advice do you have for those individuals?
One thing that we always talk about is to consult with plenty of doctors. Do your research. Like we said, that's something we should have done from the beginning. I also wish we would have had all the tests run before, after many failed cycles. I wish that was something we would have known in advance so that we could have tailored them specifically for us. So I would definitely recommend, like, check off every test you possibly can before just assuming that you know, because a lot of times you just don't know. And one thing that I'm like so grateful for is, even though this has been such a long journey, one of the most important things for me with this last cycle was to do it with no regrets, which is why we did everything we could do. And for me, this process is not easy, and I can't say that what we've done has made it easier, but I do feel like I can make peace with things because I tried everything. Like, I can't live with regrets because I did everything I can. So 20 years from now, I can't sit there and be like, but what if I had done, you know what I mean? So I would say do everything that feels like listen to your heart. Do what you feel like you should be doing, so that you know that you can make peace with whatever outcome. Like, you won't live with regret. You won't live with what ifs. I'd say hold your partner close. A lot of people don't take into account the person who's not going through the egg retrieval or the transfers. People don't take the other person into as much thought, and so, but they're going through it just as much. So I'm so grateful people thought of Stuart through all the pain.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think we can offer validation. Like, some people are able, it seems like, get through infertility problems with, like, no big deal, and other people it's really hard. So for those that feel like it's hard, it is hard. It sucks. Like, it's so emotionally and physically taxing, and it's not fun. So I validate you.
Well, and one thing I would say to people
It's the
who
worst.
aren't going through it, I would say, don't give advice at all. No, oh, did you try eating pineapples or Brazil nuts? Like, most of the time, these people have done
Going
their
to Las
research.
Vegas and getting drunk.
Yeah, that was advice we got too.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I got so much advice. And it's just awkward. And so I would say, just if you know someone, I mean, I think any trial, if you have not experienced it personally, the best thing you can say to someone who's going through something hard is, I'm so sorry, is there anything I can do for you? Like, people try to think of the perfect words to, like, make it better, but there's no words that will make it better ever. All you can do is just offer your love and support. But to people who are going through it, I would say it will be okay. Somehow, some way, you'll be all right. Listen to your heart. You're worthy of this. Just because it's not working doesn't mean you don't deserve it. And just do what you can to, like, I've thought of it as like treating myself like my own child, you know? Especially as a woman, there's so much blame I could blame myself for, but this isn't something I've chosen. And if it was my own daughter going through infertility, I would never say to her, like, you're a failure, you suck, you're worth nothing. And so I've tried really hard to be careful with the thoughts I say to myself. You know, you are amazing, you've tried so hard, good for you. And I've put on all the weight back that I lost so many years ago. I'm working on losing it, but I don't blame myself for it. I am not mad at myself for gaining the weight. I know that I was going through a horrible time, and I could have done worse things than eat, but I did what I could. And so, you know, just take good care of yourself and be kind to your heart.
That's wonderful advice. Stu, Keka, thank you guys so much for being here, for sharing your story and giving the raw emotion with it as well. I can't imagine all of the feelings that you guys have gone through. Great advice that you have given others who are in that experience and others who are not. I thought that was amazing. And good advice to give those who also are not involved in that situation. I'm interested to continue to be a part of your story and to see where it goes from here, because it's not over.
Right,
It's still going to continue and to go on and progress, of course, in your own due time and where that goes. I'm going to put a link for your vlog, your YouTube channel, on this video as well, so others can see some of the stories that you've done and also continue to follow your journey and see where it goes, whether you decide to be public about it and to keep it private, and you know, when you do decide to put those announcements out, we're excited for you and we're rooting for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening, tuning in this week to Stu and Kateka's amazing story. Until next week, take care, friends. Bye-bye.
Bye.